just see if we can see already. Just a moment. Okay, there you go. Let's just share the link and then we'll start.
Okay. All right, we are live. Where are you based out of, Surya?
I'm based out of India, Chennai.
Okay. Everything good back there?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is
All
good.
right, good.
Okay, post share. Okay. There you go. So meron na ba tayong mga viewers na pumasok? Yes, we have 11 viewers now. Good afternoon, mga Kapix Pro. So let's just wait for another few minutes. Let's just wait for other subscriber of this Facebook Pix Pro channel. So we have a very interesting topic this afternoon. So I hope you will have a lot of insights and learning today on this kwentuhang cybersecurity. So, parang wala akong nakikita VPC ng mga pumapasok. Meron ako nakikita live, pero yung, di ba dati nakikita mo kung sino yung pumapasok? Ba't di ko nakikita?
Yes.
Wait lang, overview. There you go. Okay, let's just give a few minutes and then we'll start in about, yun, meron na pala. Dito, nakita ko na sa kabila. So good afternoon, yung mga ginoo nating ka-Pix Pro, si Darwin Losoriaga. Alas Pix Pro na bro. Thank you again for joining us. I know you have a busy schedule, no? Kasi lumipat na ng region to si Darwin, pero still every Friday kasama natin to, VP Xi and President Jen, no? So
Yes, good afternoon.
Dapat ma-awardan ng ano to, ng perfect attendance sa kwentuhang cyber. Dito rin si Pearl Ferrer. Good afternoon, Pearl. Of course, our avid viewer, si Ben Isra, nandito din. Good afternoon, mga Kapix Pro, from Del Sandugo. Okay, si Frederick Gonda, nandito na rin. Good afternoon, mga Kapix Pro. Frederick, good afternoon. And Randy Bivar. Good afternoon sa inyong lahat. So, thank you again for joining us this Friday in this kwentuhang cyber. No? So before your 2 battles after office, so dito muna kayo tumambay sa amin for learnings and sharing of insights and experience. Si Jessie nandito na rin. Jessie, good afternoon. And si Lorenzo Anda, of course, si Lorenzo. Lagi naman nandito yan. Surya Sadiq.
Yeah, they're actually viewers from Indonesia, Singapore, Australia, VP Alex.
Wow!
Yeah.
Talaga?
Yes.
Welcome, welcome. Si Victor. Victor, good afternoon sa iyo, no? Yan, in Gigamon team. He mentioned about Gigamon team. Nilo Guzman, yes. Good afternoon, brother. Salamat again sa pagpunta nyo dito sa Kwentuhang Cyber.
By the way, VP Alex, if I may just mention po, no, sana our
Yes,
audience
po.
will stay tuned to us hanggang alas 6 dahil we
Okay.
have prizes. We have an interactive game and the winners will take home 2,000
Wow.
food voucher each. So we have 3 questions today. So mga makikinig po, meron po tayong for each winner 2,000 worth of Grab food voucher each.
Yan talaga gusto ko kay President Jen, VP Sheila. No?
Yes, very generous.
Napakagalante. Yes,
I love
napakagalante.
her, I love her
And-
whenever she joins us as a guest. And of course, she's our president for NCR. So
Yes.
thank you, President Jen.
And may pag-game pa siya mamaya. Kaya mga ka-Pix Pro, standby lang kayo ha. Tapusin nyo to. And we have a very exciting game at the end of the session. No? Para mamimigay si President Jen ng Pix Pro NCR ng maraming papremyo. Nandito na rin si Charmaine Torres, Sam Tabale, Victor Acevedo, Orly Nuki. Good afternoon sa inyo. Si Ray Bobier Vito. Good afternoon po sa lahat. No? Salamat. O siguro, VP Sheila, President Jen, we could start na. Ayun. Of course, our ever beautiful Kat Atienza of our Special Operation Group sa PLDT Smart. Ready na rin siya. Kat, thank you for joining. I know, busy kayo dyan nila Boss Angel, nila Chairman Angel, no? Dahil mag-e-election, nagbabantay sila sa mga, alam mo yun, possible attacks, no? So, busy ang grupo na yan. Thank you for still making time today to attend, no? So, yeah, without further ado, so let's start our kwentuhang cyber. So, magandang hapon ulit mga ka-Pix Pro. So, alas 5 na, Friday na. Alas Pix Pro na, sabi ng kaibigan nating si Darwin. No? So today, we have a very, very interesting topic is stored for you guys. No? So in today's cybersecurity landscape kasi, there are ever-evolving threats. No? So hindi na natin alam talaga ngayon kung ano yung mga dumarating na mga attacks, threat surface, threat actor, etc. And there is a challenge in every organization that you might be in terms of deploying your security control. May it be on-premise, may it be in cloud, right? But again, going back to the basic, dun sa mga previous cybersecurity sessions natin na kwentuhang cyber, visibility is the important thing. No? So, kaya ngayong hapon, we are very honored and glad na tinulungan tayo ni President Jen ng NCR no to have this very good discussion about addressing your challenges in terms of visibility in securing your cloud and on-premise application, VP Sheila. So without further ado, I give the floor to VP Sheila to introduce our esteemed guest speaker for this afternoon. VP Sheila, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, VP Alex. And again, thank you, President Jen, for gracing us for this wonderful occasion. And again, our topic for today is a continuance of all the discussions that we've been having since we started Kwentuhang Cybersecurity, which is right now visibility and demystifying cloud security. So I'd like to introduce to you today our speaker. His name is Surya Rakesh, or Surya for short. He is a passionate information and cybersecurity engineer with over 13 years career span in services and systems integrations, experience in media, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, software, and BFSI. So he's covered roles and responsibilities across IT security, intrusion and incident response, internal audit and ISMS, vulnerability, risk management, business resiliency, delivery assurance, and vendor or third-party risk management. So without any further ado, I give the floor to Surya.
Welcome, Surya, to Kwentuhang Cyber. And you have the floor now. So fire it up, brother.
Hey, hi all. Good afternoon. I would like to share my screen.
Yep, please.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. And yeah, as Alexis has been pointing out, and in fact, there has been a series of discussions happening around security and how it is important. But still, there are organizations and there are teams and businesses which think about security as an add-on, and it may not be relevant for them. So this topic, today's discussion will be more about emphasizing the necessity for security and how best we could secure their network and what is the best way to do it. And I think that will give us a good new perspective. And this is in continuation to what my colleague had shared in the previous discussion. So I think it is complementing to each other. Let's see how it goes. And any questions, I think they'll be happy to take at the end of the discussion. right? So who is Gigamon and what we do at Gigamon? So Gigamon has been a market leader, trusted of course, and we have been there for a long time now in the market, and our origins has been in the network packet broker space, and we have evolved with the changing times and the necessity of the business. So this proves that we are constantly in touch with the reality, and security has been our primary focus, and we have been committed to the full-fledged security as a service. And in the process, we also enhance the customer's security posture. So our customers, there are a lot of customers for us, and this particular screen shows the expanse of our reach. We particularly have 83% of the top 100 Fortune 100 customers, and there are large banking institutions which are our customers, and there are mobile operators, telecom providers. So all these shows they are doing something different, or they see some value in Gigamon, and what this value is, and what is the necessity for Gigamon to be part of your security infrastructure is something that we'll go into discuss. And before that, we'll just touch upon what is security and what is observability. Maybe that gives us the right context to proceed. So I'm a great fan of the security frameworks. So when we talk about security, there are multiple ways in which you could secure a network. Each may have their own perspective, and that's the fundamental reason why we need a framework. And there are multiple frameworks out there. I think for today's discussion, let's look at the NIST cybersecurity framework, which basically says identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and it goes in a loop. It's basically a learn and implement cycle. It goes in a loop. So traditionally, all our security implementations, or most of our security implementations, when we talk about the initial implementations of security, the focus was more about protect. That is, the idea was, if we buy a firewall and put it on the network, if you buy a IDS, IPS, configure it and put it on the network, and that's all that has to be done with security. That's not the case anymore. There's a wonderful quote that clearly shows from Mr. Whitman that it's not sufficient enough. Maybe it was back then. Even then, I wouldn't say no, but if maybe it was back then, but no longer that's the case. We'll have to go beyond protect. And now the case is not that if a breach occurs, or if there is a breach, it's no longer the if that matters, but it's when. So we need to be prepared for when, and no amount of protection has been able to protect an organization from any external breaches, or even internal breaches for that matter. So we'll have to be in a step ahead of that, and detection is the way to go. Protection and detection complement each other, and in fact, it needs to be deployed in tandem. So we need to have a robust protection mechanism. On top of that, even if there is a breach by any chance, there is adequate protection, adequate detection capabilities to give that extra additional edge to make sure that we are in an environment which is more secure. So still, there would be businesses which says, why would I need security? So one thing that we'll have to understand is, increasingly we are in an environment which is more competitive. The business environment is more competitive, and customers and businesses which deal with other businesses depend on the trust, or they have business based on trust. And if that reputation is broken, and it takes decades of time to build a reputation, and it is maybe a matter of seconds in terms of a security breach that it brings it all down. So we need to be making sure, businesses need to make sure that they protect their data, not just for the security, but also to make sure that people continue to have the trust in them. And that's very much required in these days, right? Now, if we look at the topic today, I think it might make some think, what's deep observability, or what is observability? Some may already know the definition for observability because it has been there for quite some time now. And how is it different from observability? For that, I think probably we'll have to just talk about what is observability first. So observability is nothing but a state in which you implement certain security. Let's talk about the security as a use case. We deploy certain tools and technologies that gives you the capability to observe, understand, detect a ongoing threat or a threat or a breach live in action. Deep observability is a step ahead of it. It has the add-on intelligence added on top of the observability. To give you an example, let's say, let's understand why observability is not sufficient anymore. If we talk about a practical example, say there is a robber, a thief who breaks into a particular campus or a particular facility to rob the facility from all its with all its content. So let's consider the use case of having the CCTV cameras or the closed circuit television cameras as one protection mechanism, and also the detection mechanism. What happens is that once they're able to get into the facility, it also means that they have access to these detection mechanisms. They have access to the CCTV cameras. So what makes them not to disable the security cameras or compromise those security cameras? So which means that when you rely on a detection mechanism which is within the system itself, that is bound to fail, because in practical sense, let's take an example of an attacker in a network. In the sequence of breaching, or in the sequence of exploiting the network, the first thing that they do is they get in, they establish the persistence, and then they see how to disable all the protection mechanisms in the network. So whereby they try to evade any detection mechanism that come in later. So that is why observability are failing, and we need to supplement that with deep observability. Let's take a look at it in detail. So this is the first flow would make it immediately recognizable. It is the MITRE attack kill chain. So you would look at this as the initial access, execution, persistence, privilege escalations. All these things are happening with or without the protection mechanism that is already there. So no amount of protection can prevent this from happening, but it is just that it is making it difficult for them to get in and do all those malicious things that happens next to that. If you look at observability, it refers to the definition is observability refers to the monitoring workloads in cloud using metrics, events, logs, and traces. These are the conventional ones that we follow, basically referred to as MELT. Deep observability, on the other hand, is an outside-in approach wherein you, along with the observability parameters, you also use the network-based network perspective. That is the intelligence from the network streams of traffic, and then use it to give the security layer on top of it. So if you still ask, again, why deep observability, that pretty much shows the point. So if a system has an active intruder in there, or an active hacker in there, then why would you trust any log that is coming out of the system? Because basically, the hacker could manipulate or compromise any log that is coming out. And ultimately, when you use those logs to analyze and detect any threats or any ongoing attack, you're not going to get the best data available, because the attacker wants to evade these systems, and he has every motivation to compromise those logs and thereby preventing you from detecting him. So in my opinion, the significance of deep observability is the difference between someone saying that we have been hacked, as in the past tense, whereas deep observability is more about being in a state of we are being hacked. If at all we are being hacked, we are being hacked. That is in the present tense. So we all would agree that it's always better to be as quick as possible, as agile as possible, and in the power. And you would notice that around the industries, around the security ecosystem, people talk about the time to detect a particular exploit. It's usually a quarter, 3 months to 6 months is what the average time that is being quoted as the time taken to detect a breach. But I would say if we have deep observability, that time would be very quick, and it could be as close as an ongoing event itself. So that is how better we are with deep observability. So what is the solution? So if we're talking about deep observability, and we have seen that the traditional security appliances or the security solutions are failable, and they are sufficiently not providing the required support. So what would be the solution that provides this deep observability? So it should be something which is supporting on-prem deployments, which is your traditional data centers where you have the servers and other valuable workloads, where you have your sensitive data. So all these things are the crux of the solution. And in addition to that, it should also be able to cater to the next gen deployments, private cloud, public cloud, serverless architecture, the containers, service meshes. So these are the way in which the workloads of enterprises moving in general. So a solution, any solution that provides deep observability has to meet the present workloads and the future workloads and whatever was the legacy. So all these things have to be sufficiently supported. And it's not just sufficient to support these workloads, but also support the tools that are already in place. Because what is the point in reinvesting the whole amount of implementing new set of tools and technologies again? So the point here is any solution that is being adopted should be compatible with the existing security apparatus. It should augment it, it has to enhance it, and necessarily not make it obsolete just because you're adopting the new technologies such as deep observability. And it shouldn't be disabled on compromising and host. So as I was saying, if you have a solution like EDR or an antivirus, a traditional antivirus, it should be disabled the moment it gets hacked, or it shouldn't be as easy as that. And that is where deep observability has a clear edge. So it shouldn't be in that space, and it should be distinguishable from anything that is present on the system. So that's where the definition of deep observability says that it is outside in, wherein the apparatus sits outside the system itself, and even when the system gets compromised, it still continues to work as it's supposed to. And it should support cloud native technologies and adopt to new cloud environments. And this should be usable for security operations and performance monitoring, which is quite critical for any organization at this point. So with all these points, let's see what now we are actually going into the topic and the heading, how Gigamon's Hawk enables us to see through the cloud using deep observability. This is a typical architecture of the Hawk visibility fabric. If you look at the deployments, it covers almost all of the workloads that an enterprise could potentially have. It supports the on-prem, both the physical, that is your traditional servers, the private cloud, the virtualized infrastructure, VMware, Nutanix, all those infrastructures will also be supported. The next gen public cloud environments, there are a whole lot of public cloud that is coming up, and each having their own pros or each having their own distinguishing factors, using USPs. So all these put together would be making up the enterprise workload infrastructure. So this also includes the containers, the serverless and service mesh applications. So when we look at this, we see that Gigamon is there in a holistic manner. It can provide visibility, more significantly, deep observability for all these workloads across the enterprise architecture. So how does the Hawk visibility fabric looks like? So basically this slide is giving us a good indication. So any legacy system, anything that has to be on the physical, virtual, and cloud equally are being supported. They all can be supported, compatible with Gigamon, and Gigamon in turn can support all the existing tools in addition to the security specific tool called Threat Insight, which is a Gigamon product, and it's more of a network NDR solution, one of the NDR solutions out there in the market, and it is readily compatible with Gigamon because we are essentially the co-developers for that. Now, coming back to the NIST framework, and let's see how Gigamon fits in this time. If you look at the the entire flow or the workflow of that. So Gigamon provides rich net flow information, application or visibility data in terms of what kind of applications are there in your network. And that gives us your good understanding and the base to define protocols for protecting those assets. So once you can't protect without knowing what is being used in your infra. Likewise, you can't protect you can't protect without protect what you have in your network. So basically, that is the primary importance of knowing what is there in your network, and then going about implementing the detection capabilities. So Gigamon's deep observability has a role to play in each of these phases. It helps you in defining your detection criteria. It helps you defining the respond and recover. So in all phases of the NIST cybersecurity framework cycle, the flow, Gigamon has a role to play. So if we also look at the support, the supported environment for Gigamon. So we have some supported ecosystem partners. We also have solutions for cloud, private cloud, physical, the public cloud, and also the traditional data centers. So all of these environment could be protected. So this pretty much covers the top deployments in an enterprise at the moment. Any workload that is part of this environment is protected, and it's not only protected. The moment you get the data, Gigamon also plays a role in transforming the data and making it readily and available for any analytics tool to act upon it. So when I say about analytics tools, so there are n number of tools in the market, and these are some of the ecosystem partners that we are partnered with. So Gigamon can really enhance the value of these ecosystem partner tools and provide them with the highly efficient, immutable data of network data, which is the golden truth of network activity. Now, quickly, now the question is, does that mean that with Gigamon, you no longer have the role for any of those traditional activities or any traditional tools that is deployed in the network? That isn't the case. In fact, one must understand security is always about defense in depth. So no single provider should be sufficiently or is capable of providing the entire security. In fact, it needs to be deployed in multiple layers, and this defense in layer is what is going to give you additional, making it all the more difficult for someone external to come in and compromise your network. So in that perspective, I would say, if you look at the capabilities of the traditional ones, MELT, metrics, events, logs, and traces, they have their own strong points. And if you look at the network logs, they have their own strong points. So you see that they complement each other. Wherever the traditional ones fail, the deep observability based on network intelligence is going to complement them. So both deployed in tandem is going to give the ultimate protection possible. And which means that if you have an EDR solution, Gigamon will complement that. If you have an NDR solution, Gigamon will complement that. And if you have a firewall, IDS, IPS, so name it, all these technologies, in addition with Gigamon's implementation, is going to give you much better value out of the logs. And also it is going to prevent any blind spots. That is the fundamental cause for all the attacks that are going out. So even if we look at the MITRE attack kill chain, you will notice that if I quickly go back there for reference, almost all the logs here, almost all these phases could be compromised by the attack. So once the attacker is already there in the system, he or she may compromise most of the systems and the logs from there. But the golden source of truth is, say, for example, let's talk about any activity that establishes the command and control. It happens through the network. That cannot be refuted. Anything that is happening in the lateral movement, so those cannot be muted. And anything that happens for data exfiltration, all these three happen, for example, over the network. And if you have the network logs for that, you no longer have to depend solely on the device logs. So that's the power of network metrics or network logs. And these these are given by deep observability. So that is the crux of deep observability, wherein we complement with the existing technologies and it provides the whole truth, and you will never be short of any information that is required for any security investigation. So that is all I had, in fact, and I would just want to show, just cover a small part. Increasingly, there are more frameworks that are being proposed. So zero trust is something that is coming up, and people are looking at it as a single point of or a single greatest implementation that could prevent them from all these things happening within for the insider threat and other things. So if you take zero trust as a concept, what it means that is you need to first understand what are all your normal day-to-day expected traffic for which you need to have visibility, and what better visibility than the network traffic itself. So Gigamon not only helps you with the active prevention or active detection of a threat, but also helps you in preparing for implementing frameworks like zero trust or any such compliance frameworks, solely based on the network logs that you see or network activity that you see. So that is where Gigamon or the cloud deep observability solutions would provide you with. With that, I think I end my presentation. And if you have any further questions on how Gigamon could help you with your deep observability journey, I would ask you to contact Jennifer, who's the moderator here. So yeah, any questions?
Okay, Surya, thank you very much. You're just in time. Perfect timing on your messaging, no? So I hope mga ka-Pix Pro narinig nyo yung diniscuss ni Surya. So key takeaway. So simulan ko BP Sheila, no? So nakikinig ako kanina. I was listening to Surya during his presentation. And one common thing again floats on our discussion on this on this messaging, that visibility is really important in cybersecurity. So he discussed a while ago that, I agree with you on your point, Surya, that, most customers or organizations today are doing the protect and detect mechanism in their security. But you're right that it's true that it's not 100% security. So we should move. Lagi sabi ni Mr. Chairman to, Angel, when we are doing the practice in PLDT Smart, no? So you should move the ball game from preventive and detective to predictive and responsive. Kasi nandun na yun eh. I mean, different attacks today have different evasion techniques, as you mentioned, right? So they could evade your firewall, they could evade your IPS, they could evade even your EDR, your security control. But at the end of the day, you're right that on top of it, visibility complements your security control to be able for you to respond and predict accurately the attacks that are coming even before it sets foothold on your infrastructure, no? So interesting, VP Sheila, no? So meron pa siyang isang Pinoy kanina, Surya, you're saying about something about the kill chain. You showed the MITRE attack. As a matter of fact, we're using that MITRE attack framework as well, no? Ang importante ron, mga ka-Pix Pro, is that when you have the kill chain, our duty as a defender in cybersecurity is to somehow give hard time to the hackers to be able to penetrate you. So somewhere between those kill chain, you have to break the chain, right? So you have layers of control that should be put in place to be able to, somehow break the chain and make the life of the hacker really miserable and hard to penetrate. Yon, VP Sheila. Kamusta naman ikaw, VP Sheila? Anong thoughts mo dito?
Yes, I agree 100%. So it's a very interesting discussion. And again, it's just a continuation of what we're trying to share with our viewers. And one point, actually, I just want to ask Surya, no? So he had the slide a while ago saying that, between we are hacked and we are being hacked. And then another thought is like, we are going to be hacked, like the assume breach kind of thinking. And when you think about it, in our last guest, they presented about the chaos theory, which is very interesting for me because it's like the butterfly effect, right? And that's what Mr. Chair was also sharing with us. For example, the war that is happening right now between Russia and Ukraine, right? We might not get hit with the physical bombs and all the whatever is happening there, but there is another thing that's going on, which is a cyber warfare.
Cyber war,
For example, the
yes.
NotPetya or the Petya ransomware. So it was intended for Ukraine, but the impact was globally. So Surya, I guess my question is, what is a practical approach when it comes to, that kind of assume breach mentality?
Absolutely. So with the current state of things, so you never know when you're going to be hacked, because we have seen in the case of the earlier known vulnerabilities and earlier known breaches, exploits, they might have been designed entirely for a different basis, be it the state actors or non-state actors. They have been coming up with exploits for a particular use, but soon it finds its way to other non-suspecting customers or non-suspecting businesses across the world. So in that case, it's no longer the case wherein you're in a state of protection, or the assumed state of protection is not something to have. Basically, what needs to be done is every day is a war day, and you need to be constantly looking out for uh, uh, these exploits that is going out. Now, the key difference is that when you are going to be taxing yourself for looking out for such exploits, it is going to take a toll on your internal resources, because you pretty much have to devote most of your resources, be it man resource or financial resource, to all these technologies. But with deep observability, the point is you need to just make it smart. You need to know what you're looking for. It's basically looking for a needle in a needle stack, not a haystack, because there are a whole lot of needles out there. You need to be very sure what you're looking for, and to make that, you need to reduce all the noise that is coming around or is around your traditional detection mechanism. In that way, you can make it more focused and more efficient. And efficiency is the key, because now it's one easiest thing to do is overwhelm you with so much of information that you're lost in analyzing each and every information that comes out. Because if you look at any security engineer, the SOC engineer, for them, the most important task is to go through all the alerts, all the events that is going out. And if there is a way for them to make sure that they can reduce the number of alerts that come out, or just focus on the key alerts, that is going to make a big paradigm difference in terms of how better you are prepared to be in this always assumed breach, so that you will be more focused and you will devote most of the resources to the actual cause.
Mhm. Yep, agree Surya, no? And if I may add, so dito papasok Pipi Sheila yung yung laging sinasabi ni Mr. Chair sa atin na yung predictive capability, no? Kasi you are already operating on a proactive cybersecurity paranoia and vigilance that you are expecting that a breach already happened, no? So two things. Number one would be, would you able to predict the breach? Or second, would you able to respond once it happened to you? Is your organization ready? No? First, on the predictive side. So kami, just sharing with you guys, no, in PLDT group, our practice, no, we enhance this practice on predictive capability. So we have our own threat hunters who are, scanning the dark web, not even the malware before it comes to our infrastructure, before it is known. For example, the log4j, the Petya, our threat hunters are already studying it. Not even before it was named log4j, we already knew it. And we already block it on our all security control. So that's how we do proactive cybersecurity. Now, on the response side, so I agree with Surya again on you need visibility that, so that you could respond easily. Again, you cannot protect what you do not see, right? So, but again, tignan naman natin, BP Sheila, yung mga comment ng viewer natin, no? So meron ng marami ng sumali ulit. We are already more than 50 dito, no? So good afternoon kay Miss Jan, nandito, no? Yung Laguna chapter president natin. Good afternoon, Jan. Nakita ko rin yung kaibigan ko kanina, si Mark Anthony Castillo, tsaka si Lysel. Good afternoon. Si Riz Balbastro. Of course, si Seven Hosting, nandito na rin, no? Salamat sa inyo, nandito kayo. Ito, may interesting question na nandito na dumating. So anyone, Surya or President Jen, you can answer this. From Randy Bibar. What kind of security tool is Gigamon ba? Is it a SIEM? So yun ang question niya. I defer to you for the answer.
So Jen, do you want to take the question?
Go ahead. I'll just add later.
Okay, yeah. So Gigamon is not any security appliance solution by itself, but although we do have that solution, the solution that we're talking here about is deep observability. The other solution that you may be referring to is the Gigamon Threat Insight, which is an India solution. But what we do basically is, no matter what security tool that you're using, be it any SIM that you're using or any India solution that you're using, what we do is make them work better, make them work better for you. So that with the sufficient minimal investment that you have done, you can derive the maximum value out of it and the correct value out of it. So there have been cases where you deploy certain appliances, but they don't work for you. You don't see any value coming out of it, but certainly those are proven technologies. It's just that the right way to get that implemented matters. So the way in which you implement your security appliances or security technologies is going to take you a long way in terms of preparing you for the day in which you're going to be exploited.
Okay. President Jen?
Yeah, if I may just add to that, actually in a high level sense, maybe I would say that Gigamon is more of like supercharging your tools. It's like empowering your investment. So it's not an SIEM tool, but you can integrate SIEM to it. You can even integrate your endpoint security, your firewalls, anything, which means to say that once you integrate it within Gigamon, then Gigamon can provide you with deep observability, with the pervasive visibility to enhance your security posture. If I just answer that way. At kanina nabanggit mo po, VP Alex, I like the way you explained about being predictive, being proactive. Because in the earlier sessions that we had with Gigamon, hosted by XPro, Kwentuang Cybersecurity, we talked about before, pervasive visibility. We talked about the logic about being ready at war. Minsan hindi natin nakita yan. Being ambiguous, hindi natin alam kung sino yung makakalaban, if there will be fog in the war, etc. But once you know how to manipulate the tools that you have, yung arsenal mo, then you have the advantage of the battle. Kanina, no? So I mean, kanina nabanggit din ni Surya. Surya was discussing about there are terminologies he mentioned like deep observability. He mentioned about melt. He mentioned about Gigamon Hawk. No, sometimes, right, in some of the organizations that we have at present, they're not that yet confident in placing some of their assets in the cloud, neither to go like hybrid network, neither into multi-cloud environments. So mainly because there is, lack of confidence po. Why? Yung mga factors, di ba? Karaniwan, ito yung security and compliance. There is yung digital experience, di ba? They're worried about it. Or maybe the cost and the complexity of putting it in the cloud. Pero sabi nga nila, once your network is in the cloud, that doesn't mean that where your head should be. Okay? So, and that would give, deep observability now will give you the confidence to put your assets in the cloud if you know how to manipulate your tools. So balik ako sa dating discussion about pervasive visibility before, being attacker and being a defender. But you can actually, once you know the duality of being an attacker and a defender in one, then you can actually have your assets be protected at the same time, be ready for combat. Diba? So yun yung being predictive. At kanina, madagdag ko na lang po, ay nabanggit din yung Gigamon Hawk. Ano nga bang nire-represent nito? Pag sinabi nating Hawk, diba? It actually symbolizes the future planning, yung intuitive decision making, protection, etc. That's why naman si Gigamon, pinangalan niya yung brand of, sasagutin ko na rin po yung tanong sa audience kanina na sagutin ko na rin po. Ang sinatanong niya kung appliance, sorry po, banggitin ko yung pangalan. Ayan. So tinatanong po ang ating viewer na si Mr. Sir Tyrion na appliance, ano po, will it replace or complement the firewall? So yung Gigamon Hawk is actually the brand of Gigamon's cloud products. Now, what does it do? So kaya siya pinangalang Gigamon Hawk is because it symbolizes the ability to observe, to analyze and act across the hybrid landscape, no? From the core to the cloud. Parang sabi nga nila, parang guardian of your organization. So I hope I answered the question.
Yes. Thank you, President Jen and Surya, for that clarification and answer. No? So yeah, shout out lang ako sa mga bagong pumasok. No? Kaibigan ko na cybersecurity expert na ngayon, si Joey Alba. Paggabi, DJ po to, mga pakagaling. Minsan dalawin niyo siya sa bar niya. No? So si Ian nandito rin. Oh, shout out Davis Yulanco from PLDT Enterprise. Thank you for joining. Si Eka Bernardo, ito kaibigan din natin sa industry. Si Marlon Umali, of course, NCR Chapter VP. Si Bang Borilla, good afternoon. No? Salamat sa pag-attend nyo. No? So, sorry, I have a question for you on this topic. No? Kasi right now, in today's architecture and infrastructure of any enterprise or even telco, there are three things that is happening right now. Number one is convergence. So we discuss about, on-prem, cloud, right? So cloudification, more and more applications are going into the cloud right now, right? So convergence, cloudification, and zero trust, diba? So all of these factors are affecting the way the customer perceive on how they will execute their cybersecurity strategy, right? Now, I'm very happy. I learned a new thing about a new term right now, which is deep observability, right? So how would you connect this one with what is happening now in our customer environment, on the enterprise environment, on the telco environment, and somehow complement the way they are securing their infrastructure, their organization in terms of their security controls with your deep observability. So how does it relate, and how do you complement on those aspects of the perspective?
Sure. Firstly, the trend about the convergence, that's actually with any new technologies, people jump on to go and experiment. But there are certain organizations who are very conscious. They take a measured step to do that convergence. It is bound to happen, but it may take its own time based on the comfort and their confidence, as you rightly pointed out. So one thing that we have seen is that the organizations which are already explored this territory, already they have the required controls, or they think they have the controls. They go on with deploying their workloads on the cloud and put it on the cloud, be it the private cloud or even, say, for example, a restricted cloud environment. But in most scenarios, the cloud has just been a sandbox for them to try out certain things, just to keep it as a development network. They don't host any sensitive data there, but they just use that to give that the elastic capability or the scalability factor to provide them with on-demand resources, which traditionally, because one of the key selling points of cloud is you get a resource or you get a workload at a click of a button. You don't have to wait for months together to procure a server and get it provisioned and plugged in and all those things. So that is the advantage of cloud. It is agile, and that agility is used in terms of any non-critical deployments at the moment. So in most scenarios, that is the use case of cloud. That which really points out to the next question: why don't organizations go to cloud immediately? Because it has some clear advantages in conjunction with their traditional workloads, which is on-prem. Security is one thing. Availability of the same security controls or same level of auxiliary tools that surround their deployments. So be it the firewalls, be it the IPS IDS, or be it any traditional security appliances that they have been comfortable and deployed already. One thing that you will have to understand is companies are not open to deploying multiple sets of tools. So if they have a tool in on-prem, that is their physical data centers, they would like to continue using the same tool even if they go to cloud. In the absence of such support in the cloud, that becomes a roadblock for them. They don't want to experiment with the new tool, or they will have to go through the same validation cycle, vetting the process, and procure onboarding a new vendor. So all these things are something that happens in the behind the scenes, but these are really, really critical. So in all these contexts, Gigamon, firstly, you pointed out zero trust. And before you deploy any security framework, or if you deploy any security tool, you must know what exactly you're protecting. Basically, you'll have to identify, you'll have to discover, and this process is not different from what an attacker does. Even when the attacker comes onto your network, first thing that they do is to discover what your assets are, where your assets are, and how easy those assets are for being compromised. So you'll have to discover yourself. And with opening up of your corporate network to internet, and with the advent of SaaS-based applications, there is always this shadow IT problem coming and creeping into your network. So you don't know exactly what your users are using. In all these scenarios, to discover what you're already using or what is happening in your network, you need solutions like deep observability. And that provides you with the visibility. And also in the very context of zero trust, it's really very difficult to map and put everything in a map to say node A and node B are the ones which are talking. And is it even expected for node A to talk with node B? How do you get all these things answered? So if you have the network data as a source, you would see these are the normal events that are happening. So these are the established channels. This will really help you with not only zero trust, that is to define the policies and controls for expected traffic to move around. It also helps you in achieving the micro segmentation that is coming up. So you can achieve micro segmentation by knowing what are all the regular expected transactions in the network. So that really helps. And apart from that, the other thing that you pointed is, of course, it complements the existing security tools. So any security tool that you have, we augment it, we optimize the data that can be immediately taken by a security tool. Let's say, for example, in SIEM traditionally rely on the device logs, which we have seen that it is always, there's a possibility of that being compromised. But with the network traffic, there's no way of someone fudging with it or anyone modifying it, which means that SIEMs could even correlate the device logs and the network logs and see that network traffic and see that there is some discrepancy there. So you will be in a better position to validate your existing mechanisms of logging and make sure that you are in a much better state.
Okay. Thank you, Surya, for that clarification. I hope, mga ka-Pix Pro, nakikita nyo how we stitch the things together. No? Kasi yung kwentuhang cyber natin, every Friday, 1 hour lang. No? Pero kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga topics na nilalatag natin dito are all interconnected. No? Na pag in-stitch nyo together, you will have the end-to-end perspective of the cybersecurity domain. Not only on the network side, not only on the application side, the cloud side, etc., but the holistic approach to cybersecurity. Kaya unti-unti, pag every Friday, uma-attend kayo, matututunan nyo. Pero may good news pala ako sa inyo, mga ka-Pix Pro. So to this afternoon, magra-raffle tayo, no? In-approve again ng very generous na VP for Finance and Admin, si VP Sheila. May 5 membership free tayo for student na ira-raffle today. Plus yung paayuda ni President Jen. So why not we start that, no? Para dun sa mga ka-Pix Pro natin nag-stay up to now, no? So VP Sheila?
Yes, VP Alex. Okay, so simulan muna natin yung para do sa 5 free memberships natin, no? Kasi this was from last week but we were not able to do it because of the time, no? So again, we want to encourage students. So the simple one is just, #PixPro, your name and school where you're from. The first 5, you will give a free membership for 1 year. So go. And then after that, we'll give the floor to Pres Jen to ask the first question for the ayuda.
Yes. O mga students na nandito ngayon. So lago na. #PixPro, name and your school for free membership for 1 year for PixPro. No? So, yan.
Ayan, si Sunny, student pa yan.
Bro Sunny, good afternoon. Welcome
Good
to
afternoon,
PixPro.
bro.
So nandito rin habang nag-iintay tayo ng mga students, no? Si Aristel Kaiga, salamat, happy Friday. Of course, si Randy Bipar, he said thank you for a very straightforward answer. Si Pearl Ferrer, Mike Dues, nandito rin, no? Tsaka si Paul Balaguer, si Gio Esquire. Mamaya babasahin ko yung maganda yung comment ni Miss Kat Atienza, no? Mamaya babasahin ko habang iniintay natin yung mga students. Meron ba? Meron bang mga students ngayon? Mukhang wala yata, VP Sheila.
Mukhang mga professionals lang, ha? So pwede rin naman, Miss VP Alex, pwede natin
sige.
professionals 5, first 5.
Okay. Okay, ano lalagay nila? Hashtag PixPro, your name and your company. O, sa mga professional na hindi pa member ng PixPro, this is your time. Libreng membership, courtesy of VP Sheila and VP Alex. Game. Mga hindi pa member dito, pwede. Kahit masteral, walang problema. Antonio, o yan, sama na si Antonio. Master of Law, San Sebastian College. Wow. Okay, Antonio, we're glad that you're here and we are welcoming you as PixPro member. Si Randy Bibar. Okay, PixPro Randy Bibar. Okay. O si Kat Atienza. O yan, 5 na. So meron na tayong 5. Una, sino na una? Si Antonio Jimeno, number 1. Welcome to PixPro. You get 1-year membership free. Si Randy Bibar, second. Si Kat Atienza, third. Si Yemi Fragile from Bahaw, Cebu Technological University. Salamat from Cebu. May mga nakikinig pala sa atin ngayon. Tsaka yung sa UAE kanina. Tsaka si Pearl Ferrer, panlima. PixPro IT Depot. Welcome. Oh, si IT Depot, parang nakamiting natin to. BP Sheila na nakaraan.
Yes, correct. May sumasali pala kaso bawal na to eh. Angel Redoble. Yeah,
Angel Robeble. Angel Pogi, PLDT. Si Mr. Chair to eh. Mr. Chair, exempted ka na. Hindi ka pwede rito. Kasi ikaw na ang founding chairman nito eh.
Pwede daw po ba, VP Alex, ang masteral student, sabi ni Mr. Antonio Jimeno.
Oo naman. Pwede naman. Lahat welcome sa PixPro. Sa matter of fact, we are enticing and motivating everyone to join the advocacy, no? Kasi tayo, unang-una ang priority natin, of course, mga students, habang bata sila, nag-aaral sila, we mold them to be a good cyber professional. And tayo namang mga professional, of course, we want to use our expertise and skills and to contribute to the society, to the community. So very welcome kayo dito. Alam ko minsan nag-iisip kayo, there will come a point in your life, in your career, guys, na magtatanong ka sa sarili mo, no, na maghahanap ka, ano ba yung bigger purpose ng ginagawa ko? So isama nyo yung PixPro advocacy natin doon, mga ka-PixPro. Okay. O yan, si President Jen naman. President Jen, go with your games.
Ayan,
Para excited naman tayo.
Bago tayo po pumunta sa interactive game, okay, babanggitin ko lang po, nakita ko may mga questions po yung ating audience. So pasensya na po, no, with 3 minutes left sa ating oras, hindi na po namin masasagot lahat. Pero don't worry po, babalikan po namin kayo later after the session. No? Si Mr. Ben Izra Dakudaw, Mr. Randy Devibar, Mr. Sir Tayrion, Ms. Pearl Ferrer, Ms. Katrina Atienza. Noted po sa mga questions, babalikan po namin kayo later. At ngayon, at pinakahintay din ng lahat, no? Sabi ko nga kanina, meron po tayong interactive game. At we have 3 winners this afternoon. At mag-uwi lang naman ng napakaliit naman na ayuda. No? Pwede na ba, laman siya na ba yung 2,000 worth of
Wow!
voucher each? Right.
Hindi ka makakapulot ng 2,000, President
Naman
Jen, ha?
po, naman. So, napakadali lang naman po no nung ating mechanic. So, magtatanong lang naman po ako. There are 3 questions. And then, ang question po ay nakabase sa pinresent kanina ni Surya. So, ang ating magiging code lang po ay #PixPro and the answer. Pero, syempre, ito, dadalian natin, magiging multiple choice. Babanggitin ko yung mga choices doon sa answers para hindi kayo mahirapan. Again, ulitin ko po, #PixPro, space, and the answer. Okay, antayin niyo po at magbibigay ako mamaya ng mga options. Alright, game na ba? Okay.
Game sis, go.
For our question number 1. Blank provides the outside-in or the network-based perspective which is lacking in observability. In short, this is the extension of observability using network intelligence. Is it deep security, deep observability, or deep mitigation? Blank provides the outside-in or the network-based perspective, which is lacking in observability. In short, this is the extension of observability using network intelligence. Is it deep security, deep observability, and deep mitigation? Surya, do not answer, right? Our audience will answer that. I know you're wanting to answer that. So please help
We have
me.
an answer.
Oh,
we have the correct answer. So
Okay.
Press Jen, it's from Aristel. No, from Andre.
From
Miguel.
Andre.
Yes, the
Tumasang
Kudaw.
ngayon ang mga manok sa background ko. Kung narinig ninyo.
Matutulog na sila.
Work from home. Po, so congratulations ang ating winner po. For the first question, VP Sheila, I see
Andre.
Andre. Congratulations, Andre. You are 2,000 pesos richer.
Wow,
Congrats.
enjoy the food voucher. Enjoy.
Next
Okay.
question po. We'll get in touch with you, by the way, pagka po mamaya kukunin po yung details para makuha niyo po yung prizes niyo agad. Number two na tayo. To close the visibility gap, Gigamon released a product called Blank, the industry's first elastic visibility and analytics fabric for all data in motion across the cloud networks. Ano po ito? Animal, right? Symbolic animal na nabanggit kanina. Is it
Rooster ba yan, sis?
close to that? Wala siya sa lupa. Is that hawk, falcon, or eagle? Napakadali niyan. Giveaway yan. So to close the visibility gap, Gigamon released a product called Blank, the industry first elastic visibility and analytics fabric tool. Is it hawk,
Yata yan. Scorpio.
We have the correct answer, sis.
Okay, sige po. Go ahead po, VP Sheila.
Akaso kulang yung ano ni Miss Katrina. Kulang ng I, ang Pix Pro niya. Okay, so ang next answer is Aristel, Realista, Pix Pro Hawk.
Congratulations, Mr.
Sorry, Miss
Aristel.
Kat.
2,000 pesos worth of Grab food vouchers. Last na po, no? Last na. Huwag nang pang-apat, mag-aabono na po ako. Hanggang 3 lang po tayo. Okay po? Pangatlong question, napakahirap. True or false? Okay, true or false? Napakahirap. Number 3. Third question is, observability refers to monitoring workloads in the cloud using MELT. The acronym MELT is used to define 4 essential data types, which stands for metrics, events, logs, and traces. Is this statement true or false?
Wow, napakadali.
Napakadali po niyan. Tignan natin kung sino makakuha ng tamang answer. Nakita ko may mga sumagot na po. VP Sheila?
Yes, correct. Si Antonio, tama ba, sis? True daw.
True. Tama po. The answer is true. Congratulations, Sir Antonio.
All right. Congrats to
Thank you.
everyone.
Congrats to everyone. Nakakatuwa, no? Natututo na tayo every Friday. May chance pa tayong manalo ng mga ganyan. Thank you. Very generous ka, President Jen. No?
Yes.
So, yeah. Before we wrap up, na, no? Siguro we wrap up the discussion this afternoon. So, I give you, Surya, for final messages to our audience who are listening on the topic that we discussed today. Just a few lines of final words.
Absolutely. I think the key aspect of security is not to be in a state of denial or in the state of assumed secured infrastructure. So there is always someone who is, or there is always a possibility of someone being smarter or able to evade all the protection that we have already placed. So it's better to explore the next step in the security paradigm. And I would say, give deep observability a closer look. This space is going to gain much pace in future. It is already gaining up. People are already inquiring about deep security, deep observability. And I would say, suggest everyone who is serious about security to have a look at deep observability and how it can enhance their security posture. You could do more with little. So that's the message I want to give.
Thank you, Surya. You're a very good resource speaker. Thank you for gracing the Cyber Kwentuhan this afternoon. President Jen, final words for our viewers.
Actually, nagpapasalamat lang po ako on behalf of Gigamon. Thank you very much for our viewers for today. At atin ang Pix Pro, VP Alex, VP Sheila, thank you for hosting the session today. Again, from the core to the cloud, this is Jennifer Tan, Country Manager of Gigamon Philippines. Isang magandang gabi po sa lahat.
Thank you, Pres Jen. VP Sheila, final words to our viewers.
Yeah, so thank you again, Surya and Pres Jen for gracing us today. So like in all our discussions, preparation is key, knowledge is key. Don't be in denial. You know what to
Hmm.
do, just do it. So thank you again and see you next week. By the way, we are encouraging all viewers to please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook page. We have so many announcements upcoming, especially our upcoming inaugural Pix Pro Golf Cup. So that's happening on May 30. So Surya, Jen, if you play golf,
You are
please
invited,
join
guys. You are
us.
invited. Yeah, join us. Okay, very good. Thank you, VP Sheila. So ako, final words ko lang. Again, here at Pix Pro, we're trying to bridge the gap in terms of cybersecurity awareness, cybersecurity thought leadership. Ito, nakita nyo sa background namin nila VP Sheila, yung mga partners natin. So cybersecurity is an ecosystem, mga ka-Pix Pro. So it's no longer yung mga security vendor lang, di ba? Like today, Gigamon is actually a network vendor, but they are trying to augment or to complement also the security, security world, no? So it's a matter of, mix and match and, experimenting which work for your organization. We're not saying what we are saying here is applicable to you, but what we're trying to say is that there are solutions out there that could help you, support you, or complement your current strategy that you're doing right now. So again, thank you very much for gracing the occasion this afternoon. Happy Friday to everyone. I hate to say this, but it's already 6 o'clock. Again, sa cybersecurity, happy lang,
Happy lang,
walang
walang
weekend.
weekend.
See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
You all. Bye.